Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is doing okay and ready for another exciting Saturday. Let me know if you are able to hear me properly. Give me a +1 and we'll quickly get started. I could see people joining in. Hello, Uri, Vasu, Vijay, Pawan. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. I'm traveling, so I'm not into the same setup which I have at my home. That's a luxury I have. So I'm having a little bit of different setup today. Probably you can still hear me fine, and we would have a great start of the session, and we'll continue with lots and lots of discussion. Thank you, everyone. And I'll add screen from Marco, and Marco would be taking the things later. But yeah, let's start with a very specific question which I prefer to ask everyone. Like, okay, what is your favorite animated movie? Let's go to the next screen and see what is your favorite animated movie. If you have any suggestions or any character you like or any specific movie you like, let me know and we will quickly get started. Just a icebreaker question for everyone. Marco, can we move to the next slide, please? Yeah, good. Mowgli, that's a good one. Shrek, TCP, I resonate with you. These are the two minds. I like Ratatouille. I like to watch it again and again. Probably it is concerned with food, and I like to enjoy different type of food if it is vegetarian, and that's a limitation for me. And Shrek is obviously good one. Unni is going with Avatar. Inside Out is really good one. I haven't watched the second chapter of that. Probably I should be watching it. Toy Story is a really good one. Buzz Lightyear. Lion King is always a good one. That's a good thing. What else? What else? Any Ratatouille. Thank you, Simangali. And Kung Fu Panda. That's a good one too, Pawan. Thank you so much. Finding Nemo. You remember? I remember now a lot of old memories with Finding Nemo movie. Let's kick start this presentation. So we'll go to the next screen and we'll discuss what is going to be presented today. So we are on the seventh week for BESA, and I just feel that we just started, but we are already on seventh week. This is second last session we have. It is 29th March. We will start with the technical track. We made a little change here because the functionality we wanted to discuss about VMware was not into a production ready stage or for a lot of people which may not be able to access the environment. So we changed it a little bit and we'll be focusing on a workshop oriented demo on getting started with Amazon Q business. And Marco would lead the technical explanation, and then Parna would show you a demo on that. And in the behavioral track, we would have Rohan. Rohan is a seasoned Amazonian, been around 9 years, I guess, and he is a director of solution architect. So, who else would be better to tell us about Loop Interview? So, we'll be talking about all the Loop Interview related question, and we'll pick up your questions also into this final session, into the technical, sorry, behavioral session. So, that's what we are going to go ahead on the track. Let's get started and keep your questions coming. Kapil is with me, and then we have Shashank also with us. Let me introduce everyone so that, and let me add Parna also to the stage. Kapil, if you want to come on camera, good. Otherwise, we are okay with that. That's fine. And Shashank is here too. Shashank is there too to help you out with the questions. So keep your questions coming, and we'll try to answer as many questions as we can. Hi, Shashank. Thank you. All right. I'll hand it over you to Marco, and then we will keep on adding people as and when we need it. Thank you so much.
Mhm. Thank you, Ashish, for that introduction. Beautiful introduction. And this will take us into a little bit of an exploration of Amazon Q business today. So, first thing, I want to kick this session off by asking everybody, do you use an AI assistant? It's a yes or no question. And if you want to tell us what you use the AI assistant for, is it for answering question? Is it a coding assistant? Is it an assistant that helps you in any other way? That would be really wonderful to know so that we can kind of get a better idea of how well it is already used in your um, personal experience. So there's a lot of yeses. Coding, yes. There's some answers about uh, full LLM suites. Cool. Amazon Q, lovely. Email, lovely. Email. Coding assistant, yeah. To clarify ambiguity, that is a critical point as well. um yeah, lots of cool answers right there. Technical questions, answering technical questions, testing yourself. Are you thinking right? So good adoption, I would say, of Q business. What if I told you of an AI assistant, excuse me, what if I told you that most businesses haven't adopted an assistant yet? There's been a recent survey that said only 23% of businesses have adopted an AI assistant. And that might be sort of a really surprising thing to know. Well, the problem with businesses typically is that they're afraid. They think, oh, I'm going to be sending data up to some kind of LLM that's running somewhere that I'm not aware of what's happening. So businesses are reluctant to adopt this technology, even though you all are using it, even though you all are coding with assistants, answering technical questions, um, doing all of this stuff that helps you in your own personal endeavor. Businesses are reluctant to do that. And this is where Amazon Q Business comes in. Amazon Q Business is an AI powered assistant, just like any other assistant. And it's here to answer questions. It is designed to answer questions. It is designed to provide very accurate answers. And that's something that typically you find with these open source AI assistants, that they might hallucinate sometimes. If you're in a business and you have to make decisions based on output of an application like an AI assistant, then it cannot hallucinate. It has to give you accurate information. It has to give you the sources for that information. Also, it needs to be secure. Security is a key feature of any application that's running in the cloud. And those answers that are provided on data need to also be correctly secured. And the answering for Q Business is based on enterprise data. So essentially, we can plug enterprise data into Q Business, hence the name Q Business, to answer business type questions, to do all of the things that the business could benefit from. So, yeah, it can answer general questions. It can answer questions about your favorite topics. But the idea is that it can answer enterprise specific questions, and those enterprise specific questions are about your customers, about your data set. And you can see in both of these examples there are a bunch of numbers here, and these numbers are sources for the answers. So not only will the assistant give you information about the answers, it will give you direct sources for all the information in your enterprise data set. We said it's secure, so you are in control of your data. Q Business uses fully pre-trained machine learning models. There is no up training, there is no tuning on your data. Customer data is always secure and is stored inside of the region where Q Business app is created. So basically, it falls under the same agreements, under the same data governance, under the same data security principles as any other data for your enterprise. And this is one thing that is a very big barrier to adoption for businesses. It's signing the legal documents, signing the contracts, signing all of those SLAs between the provider and an enterprise, so that the enterprise will deposit the data into the provider's region, data center area somewhere on the provider storage. If your enterprise is using AWS today, then the same exact governance, the same exact contracts, SLAs, and everything that is already signed applies for Q Business. So it doesn't take months to adopt it, it takes minutes to adopt it. That is a really, really big factor in adoption itself. Full access control. So Q Business access is controlled via IAM Identity Center. IAM Identity Center can be federated with the corporate directory, meaning that corporate users just log into single sign-on, and now they have direct access to Q Business. And of course, also we have full control over access, full control over licensing for our users inside of Q Business. All controls for compliance are in place. We've got CloudTrail to monitor all API calls, so any management events for administrative actions, and we can also enable monitoring of data events for our application, for our data source, and for our indexing events as well. So we can get very deep into all of the API calls that are happening in there. And it has built-in support to adhere to many compliance standards like HIPAA, like PCI DSS, all kinds of different types of compliance and security standards can be easily met with Q Business. To get to that enterprise data, Q Business uses retrieval augmented generation. You've seen this in week 3, how retrieval augmented generation works, except that in the case of Q Business, the question relevancy, the enterprise knowledge store, and the generation of the answer is all handled by Q Business itself. So there is nothing really to configure to make RAG work. All we need to do is we need to point Q Business at our enterprise data sources. And we have a huge selection of enterprise data sources to choose from. So anything that you would typically use in an enterprise, any kind of document store, any kind of database, any kind of data warehouse, any kind of calendars, emails, software as a service solutions, ticketing solutions. So for example, I've got a ticketing platform. I want to use my Jira tickets to resolve some problems. And the beauty of these data integrations, enterprise data integrations, is as I make these data sources available, they become plugins for the users. The users will be able to use those plugins and say, okay, I've learned something about the data. Now I can take the results from my chat with Q Business and generate a ticket or update the ticket or start a root cause analysis on that, on what I've learned from Q Business. And this is where the power of Q Business lies. It is designed for the business. It is designed to be secure. It is designed to be accurate. And it's designed to simplify the daily tasks that people in a business will perform. And then, of course, that brings us to our technical demo. And Parna's going to take over, I think. There we go.
Yeah. All
Stage is
right.
yours, Parna.
Yeah. So, Ashish, could you just help share my screen, please? So, great technical session, Marco. So, I'm sure people must be excited to look at the demo. So, just to introduce to you, this is a demonstration about Amazon Q Business building an AI powered, AI generative powered app which can privately access your enterprise data. And why we are not really sharing the workshop link is because the workshop content is a little outdated, so it may not actually match with the steps that I follow, so it might just confuse you. So just take it as a glimpse into how to build AI generative AI based app using Amazon AI Business Cube. So let me just start with what it's all about. So think of it as you are a business, and the example that I'm taking of is basically a casual food company, which is called as Pow Pow Foods. I could probably share this document with you. I'll share this in the chat, and maybe the BESA team can share that with you. So this is basically what you see. It's a business plan, okay, and this is a business plan of Pow Pow Foods. And just to give you an overview of what this business plan is, so this in this business plan, if you go through it, you will see that there are two entrepreneurs or restaurant venture owners, who is Alice and Bob. And they've started this business, which is a casual fast food business based in Columbus, Ohio. And one of their most award-winning items is chicken pow pow recipe. And they have some marketing strategies that they are using, which is highlighted in this document. If you go through it a little bit, you don't really have to read it. I'm just giving you an overview. And they have some marketing strategies like loyalty programs, targeted marketing to people using their food truck initiatives, etc. Right. So this is all there in this document, and we want to ask questions to this document, understand about their marketing initiatives, what is their plan, where are they based, what is the next plan of actions, etc. So say you want to build an app around this. In this case, this is just a 2-page business plan, but in the real world it could span up to lots of pages, right? So we'll take this as our basis, and I'm going to be building a app based on that. So now what does this entire system look like? Now think of it like the business. It has users in them. There'll be different categories. There'll be some sales managers. There'll be somebody in business development. So there'll be different groups of users, and the organization will have their own user directory. So they can opt for, say, some federated IDP, say Okta or Microsoft AD, or Identity Center, which is AWS based. It also has its own user directory. So in this particular demo, all the users are going to be residing in Identity Center. Okay, so that is the identity provider. So that's how the users or the business users are going to get authenticated into the app. So that's sitting right here, and these users are going to be broken down into different groups, as I said, and each group might have different permissions to different kinds of data. So right now I just spoke about one kind of business plan document. There could be multiple enterprise data sources which could span across databases. It could be external sources such as Salesforce. You can see there's Google Drive. There could be like Jira, ServiceNow. It could be an S3 bucket also as the data source. Okay, so all of these are sources of data which is connected through a data connector that Marco was telling you about. Obviously, Amazon Q Business needs permissions also to talk to it. So Amazon Q Business needs permission to ingest that data. And once it ingests that data, this data is ingested into indexes, right? Indexes are what? It helps us to search for data very easily. Okay, if you're aware about database indexes, it is similar concept over here, right? Once the user queries or sends a prompt to the Amazon Q Business app, what it will do is it's going to go and search into those indexes which have been created through these data sources. And then when it finds relevant chunks of data, which is relevant to the question, then it will send it as an output. Now, we can combine the response from these data sources along with LLM also. So internally, it is just an inbuilt RAG. So if you've understood in our previous sessions, we spoke about what is RAG. We are augmenting the output coming from our data sources, and then we are supplying it to our foundational models LLM. So if you want, we can combine the information that comes out of the searches of these data source with that also, and it's a configurable parameter, right? So we can take only this or combine it with that, and that's when you get the output. Okay, so this is the basic scenario. So now let me show you how the setup is like. So just for the ease of doing it a little faster, because this takes a lot of time, I have already created an application. Now, what does it take to create an application? So once you create an application, I have one over here, but I'll just show you what are the steps involved. You give it a name. You also mention whether you want a web experience, right? So sometimes you can talk to Amazon Q Business via APIs and SDKs. Okay, if you want your kind of front end, etc. Or there is also a ready-made web experience that you can opt for. So if you choose that, then you can put a tick on it, right? So in this case, we have opted for it. Next, how are we going to manage that access, right? I spoke about how are we going to authenticate all the users who are going to use this app. So in that case, we have to provide, either we are using Identity Center, which we are going to do in our demo, or we can federate it with some other identities providers like I said, Okta or some SAML-OS identity provider, or any OIDC based identity provider as well. So that is also possible. So either of them. So in our case, we are going to use Identity Center. And
Parna, one
yeah,
question. People may not be aware about Identity Center, so if you would
yeah,
be able to address a little bit
yes,
on that. Thank you.
right. So you can think of Identity Center as a central place where you hold your information about all your users in a user directory in the most simplest form. So it's made up of groups of users. So you can see, I'm just showing you the screen. This is my Identity Center. You need to go and enable it. So first time when you go to enable it, this is what it looks like. So Identity Center is restricted to a region. So I've just selected another region just to show you. First time when you open up Identity Center, this is what it looks like. So you need to enable it. Once you enable it, then you need to choose. So this is a nice way to show how it works. Once you enable it, you need to choose either you want it enabled only for the current account, the account that you're working on, or for the entire organization. So you can do either of them. So in our demo, I have done it only for our account, but it's possible for the organization management account as well. Thereafter, what are you going to do? You are going to connect it either to an existing identity provider. So as I said, you can have your identity providers set up in IAM also. So if you go to the IAM screen, you'll see there is an option where you can create your identity centers over here, right? Identity providers. Okay, so you can see over here, so you can go and create your own identity provider. So it can be SAML based or OIDC based, OpenID Connect based. Okay, so once you create it over here, then you have the option. However, in our case, we are not using those identity providers. We are directly using the identity center's own user directory. Okay, so we are using over here, you can see the source is identity center's own user directory. So a directory is nothing but a collection of users and user groups. Okay, so you can see that this is what I have opted for once I have enabled it. So once this is created, you'll see that you have the option of creating groups. Okay, so as I said, this is a business. So I have a business group, I have a sales manager group. So I've created two groups, and within each group, I have created users. You can create a user individually or add a user to the group after creating it over here. Okay, so I hope that's clear. So it's just a user directory made up of groups and groups of users, right? So this is about our identity center. So once you're creating your app, it will ask you, okay, what do you want me to integrate it with? So this is where I have chosen identity center, and because I had created this previously, okay, you can see I had created, this is the setup. That's why it automatically appeared over here. Okay, so this is where you can see it. Once you select that, you can also select which users to use. Okay, so there are a couple of users I showed you over there. There were groups also. You can choose the users or the groups over here, or you can choose it later as well. That's completely fine. Next, what you'll do is you have to give it some kind of permission. So what you see over here is you have to give permissions to Amazon Q Business app, okay, to talk to other services. So that's where you create a service linked role. Okay, so a role gets created for you when you opt for it. And then apart from that, you can also create a new role, or you can use an existing one. So I'll just show you when you create a fresh app what it looks like. That was the app that I was showing you, which is already there. This is what it looks like the first time. Okay, and you can go and select over here, create a new service role, or you can use the existing one. Okay, so I hope till now things are clear, right? So next, once the app is created, what you get is, this is the screen that you'll get. Okay, let me show that to you. Okay, this is the screen that you get. This is the setup that you just did. Okay, it might look a little complex now for you, but what you're seeing over here is, this is just the name of the app. It is connected to identity center. How is the access management done? For the encryption of the data that is going to be moving in and out, there is a Amazon Q managed or owned key over here, and these are the role information. Because I had chosen the web experience, you can see over here, it's automatically created a link for it. So you can access the app using this link. Okay, so I'll show that to you later. Over here, what you see is who are the users who will be able to use the apps. So initially, when you just create the app freshly, you will see 0 over here. What I did was to manage who are the users in my identity center who are going to be eligible to use the app. You go to manage user access. So when you go to manage user access, it's going to show you all the groups and the users which are there. Okay, so you can go ahead and add more groups or users. You can see over here, you can add and assign new users, or you can take existing ones. So we already had those existing ones which I showed you over here, right? So these were our existing ones, if you remember, right? So you can go and pick existing ones. So if I do this, it will actually give me that option. And if I search the group over here, let me search the group and I'll show you. This is the group. So I've already added it, but just to show you what it looks like. Okay, so it will turn up over here, and once you click on it and say done, it gets added. So basically what I've done over here is I've said these two groups of users are eligible to or authenticated to use this app. Okay, that's what we've done till now. Coming back over here, so we've set up our identity, we've set up all our users and group, etc. Next, what we need is our data sources. Now, where is the data going to come from? Okay, so we will need to add our data sources. So if I just take my other app, which I have not set my data sources for, I'll show you what it looks like. So you'll need to add a data source. Once you click over here, it will tell you that you first need to create an index before you mention which is the data source. So what is the index? Index is where your data is going to be ingested or pulled from those data sources and filled over there. Okay, so you need a place to store it. So you can think of your data source as the library, and you can think of your index as the tool which is going to grab the data from the library and store it somewhere, so it's easier to locate, right? So we need to add an index. So the first step before we add a data source is to add an index. Okay, so this is the step that you need to do, because this takes quite a bit of time. So I did it beforehand for the other one and kept it. So I'll show you. Once you have added the index, it will show up, and this is what it will look like over here. So you can see over here for the other app, I have already created an index, and it's created an index for me, and it will show up over here. Okay, for the new app, I have not created an index, that's why it's showing as blank. Now that the index is created, the next thing that we will need to do is now choose the data source. So as Marco was saying, we have a lot of different data sources that you can choose from. So we've done our index. Now we are going to connect to our data sources before we can synchronize it. After I scroll down, you have the option of adding data sources here. You'll say add data source, and you can see the very same screen that Marco had shown you. So these are the most popular ones. S3, you can have a web crawler, which is a crawler is nothing but it goes and scrapes all the data from a web URL, right? So you can have a web crawler, or you can literally go and upload your files. Okay, these are the most common options, but you're not restricted to that. You can see there are plenty of other options you can choose from. So for this demo's perspective, I'm going to show you S3 and web crawler. So there is an S3 bucket which I have already, and these are the files which are there. Okay, this is the business plan I was showing you initially. So both of these you can ignore it as of now. So this is the business plan which I was showing you, and I have uploaded it into my data source. So once you choose this, it will give you the option. So I have already done that, but I'm just showing it to you how you need to do it. You will give just a name that you want. Okay, so I'll just call it test data source. You need to provide a role to Amazon Q business, because it needs to go and look into this data repository, right? So S3 is acting like a data repository. So you need to go and give it those permissions. So what would you do is, if you're doing it for the first time, it's recommended that you create a new service role, unless and until you've already created it before, right? So you'll create that. This is just a default name it's given. Over here, this is the place where it's saying where is your data source location. So if I go and browse, so the bucket that I was showing you, that's the only bucket currently in this account. So you can see it's already turned up, and you can select this bucket. So if you have multiple buckets, you can choose whichever bucket they would have showed up. So this is my bucket source. Some of these we'll keep it as default, but just to give you an idea, the maximum file size over here, what does this mean? That from my data source, the maximum size of the files that the retriever, the one which is actually reading through the data source, will use is 50 MB. So anything over that, it will not choose that. So this is the maximum file size that it will do. Anything below this or up to 50 MB. But from each file, the amount that it can actually retrieve is maximum 5 MB. Okay, so The file size can go up to 50 MB, and the amount of data that can be extracted from each file can go up to 5 MB. So this is configurable. We're just going to keep it default. There are many other controls over here. I'll speak about a few of them at a later point. So assume that I'm keeping things as default, just pointed it to my data source. Then there's something called a sync mode. Now, what is sync mode? So, obviously, your enterprise data doesn't remain constant. It keeps changing over time. You might go in and update it. You might add something, delete something, update something. So, every time you synchronize it, you are basically you're syncing your data source with your index. Okay, that's what you're doing. So that every time you're querying using your app, you always get your latest data. So, what kind of synchronization do you want to do? So you can either go for a full sync. So a full sync means irrespective of whether it is updated or deleted or changed or not, you are again synchronizing and bringing down the entire data. So you can go for a full sync, or you can opt for something which only synchronizes data which is anything which has undergone any change, like updated, deleted, edited. So you can choose either of these modes. Next comes, how frequently should you synchronize this data? You can't just do it at like once in a month and forget about it. Then you will be querying outdated data, right? So you can choose the schedule also. You can run it on demand, meaning whenever you as admin want to synchronize it. So it's on demand. So you need to literally go and click synchronize as and when you want. Or you can set up a schedule like hourly, daily, or do a custom one. So you can put in your cron expression over here, and it will do it on a regular basis. Okay, so you can choose. So in this particular demo, we've done it on demand just to show you. Next, you can also opt for where this repository, okay, so the S3 is acting as a data repository. Yeah? Where will it reside? So you have the options to specify your VPC as well. Okay, so in this case, we are not specifying, but you have that option of specifying which VPC. If you choose a particular VPC, then you'll have to give other things like the subnet, the security group, things like that. So this option is there, which we are not going to do. And there are several other options. After that, once you click on add data source, it takes almost 20 minutes. So I've done it and kept it. It will start creating your data source, and this is what it will look like after the data source is created. So over here, you can see this is the S3 data source that I created. Once you've created your data source, okay, it's still not ready to use. You have to synchronize it. So remember, I told you your index is ready, your data source is ready, you have to synchronize them. So you will need to select this, and you'll have to say synchronize now. Because I had chosen for on demand, this is how we are going to synchronize. So I have already synchronized it and kept. So I'll show you that you can see when was the last time you synchronized. There's a sync history. You can see I did it a couple of times today. Every time I changed some data, I went and did a synchronization. Once the synchronization is done, you can see the status, it is completed. That's when you can start actually using your app. Okay. Now, how do I start using the app now? So admin controls are already in place. We've not put in any restrictions or guardrails till now. I'll tell you about them later. Okay. Now it's all ready. So you need to go and look at this web interface URL, which was generated for you. Okay. So I've just kept it ready. Just show that to you. Okay. So once I clicked on it, it actually asked me to log in, and I'm logged in as one of the users. All right. So I've logged in as one of the users, and this is the interface that you see. Okay. So I'll show you now how this will work. So I'm going to be asking a few questions related to that business plan. So let me ask a few questions, which I have ready. Just give me a moment. Okay. So let me start with a very basic question. So I told you that specialty is chicken pow pow. So you can see that it's going to answer that. And it seems as if it's getting it from nowhere, but it has actually given the source.
So Parna, I want to
Yeah.
quickly summarize what is happening here, and correct me if I'm not following along.
Yeah.
So we had a business plan
Yeah,
and we want to make that document as a source from an S3 bucket so that anyone can ask question based on it. And it is just one example. In my S3 bucket, then can be multiple
yeah,
document. It could be the
correct,
whole repository of my technical documentation or my business plan. And then through
right,
these indexes, I am able to ask questions based on it. That's what is happening, right?
right. So over here, I've just uploaded one document. There are a
One
few other
document.
things, but yeah,
Okay,
but I could have gone and uploaded a few more. And
more.
once I run the synchronization, the index will ingest all the information from all the documents. Okay.
All the
And then
document.
when I ask these questions, it will give
Mhm.
you the citations, also the resources. Okay. So in this
And yeah,
case,
that's
it's
good.
given me
Means, and one more question
the
here, just to
information.
understand things. Like
Yeah.
this web interface which is coming up is a feature of Amazon Q. I do not need to set up any web server or anything for it. It is just the
No,
interface which you am seeing
no.
right now. It is the interface of Amazon Q itself, right?
Correct, correct. So like, as I said, you can opt for using this web interface. I had actually enabled that. If you see over
Okay.
here, I had opted for it. So in the, if I
Hmm.
go back again to the settings and show you over here, there was an option. So you can see I had actually selected it. But
Selected
if
it.
you
Okay.
don't want to use this interface, you want to use your own kind of interface, you can build that and then talk to Amazon Q Business using your APIs and SDKs programmatically.
And
Make
and my
sense?
guess is that is it an API driven application, so I could integrate it with my own applications also should not be a problem,
Correct.
right?
Correct. So that time you will have your own interface. But this is
Own
a
interface,
quick and ready way of building a
ready
interface
interface.
for you to just get it up and running.
And just for
Yeah.
sake of audience, one more question.
Yeah.
So my identity source, which I am using currently, is creating a local user within that identity source. But in real life,
Correct.
that could be coming from Active Directory or coming from Okta or coming from any other type
Correct.
of identity providers.
Correct. So in this case, as I was showing you, so the source is the inbuilt user directory. We have used the inbuilt one, but if I want, I can create, I can connect it to Okta or Active Directory as well. So that's also possible. But I have used the inbuilt one. So you can see over here, it says Identity Center Directory. Yeah.
Okay. And the web app which we are creating, Parna, it can be
Hmm.
given access to multiple user, and then based on their role, they would have access to that particular information. Like if I'm a finance person, probably I need to know finance data. But if I'm a salesperson, I should not be seeing the finance data. It should be made hidden from me,
Right.
right?
Right, right. So there was a setting over here. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to confuse people at the beginning itself, so I'll just show
Yeah.
you. Um, I'll show it from here. So if you go to the data sources, so I
Mm-hmm.
did not put any restrictions as of now, right?
Okay.
So everybody can see, query all the data. But
Mm-hmm.
in the settings, if you see now, there is an option over here, okay, which is called as access control list. So
Access control
access
list.
control list configuration file is one which actually is the command center which decides which group of users or which user gets to access what. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
this file has to be pointed to. So there is actually a file over here. You can see it's a JSON file. I'll show you what it looks like, which is
Mm-hmm.
residing here, right? So it is residing in this folder, which is actually controlling who can access what. I'll show you what it looks like. So
Mm-hmm.
it's very simple.
Good.
If you recollect, I had two groups of users. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
there was a sales manager and a Q business group, and you
Business
can
group.
see over here that only the sales manager group is allowed to
Okay.
query the data from, say, from this prefix, the sales prefix. However, if some user from this particular group is trying to ask questions which may be related to data which is present in this group, they will not be having access to it, because in a general day to day life they don't have access to sales data, so why
Sales
through the
data.
app, right? So this is the one which actually controls the access control which you are talking about, right?
Yeah, just to
Does it make
summarize it
sense?
for everyone's sake, like if a
Yeah,
user does not have access to that data outside of queue, even inside the queue, they will not have the access. So if you feel like, hey, queue
absolutely.
can give me some data which I should not be having access, giving access. No, it will never happen. Q would be able to identify what access levels are there, and based on that only the results would be generated. So let's say I ask, I'm a finance guy, and say what is my business plan. So in that case it may display me the finance data also. But if my marketing department is asking the same question, even if it is the same data set, it may not give them financial data because they may not been given access externally. So whatever external access you do not have, being in queue will not automatically be giving you access, because we would adhere to whatever policy security settings has been defined. So it is completely safe in that way. Nobody would have any access of data. Even if you have given a whole source, we would still be able to control who gets to see what.
Correct. So just to elaborate on that, so for example over here there is a sales folder, and I showed you the access control which said that this group of users should not be able to access it. So the user that I've actually logged in and I showed you, okay, so it belongs to the business group user. The user does not belong to the sales group. So for example, if I am going to ask a question, what is the estimated revenue of the company over the next 3 years, so you would think that he should get an answer, right? Because I showed you over here the sales data is present here. But the permission says they should be denied. So they do not have access to that. So this is what they'll see. So if they ask this question, you'll see that they will not really get the answer from the enterprise data. You will get some answer, but you must be wondering from where is it getting all these answers. I'll tell you how it's giving. Usually it will say no answer found, but the reason it's giving this much answer is because I have also set up the permission as a fallback option to ask the LLM as well, right? So if it doesn't find any answers, then it can fall back to LLM, which I have configured. That's why you're getting the other part of the answer, which I'll show you in the part called as guardrails. Okay, so now I'll show you how you can control that as well. So you have admin controls and guardrails over here. Okay, so under guardrails, if I go and show you over here, so you can see over here, I have allowed Amazon Q to fall back on LLM knowledge. Now, if I uncheck this, you'll see that if I ask some unrelated question, now, for example, right now, if I just ask what is the capital of Spain. Okay. Now remember my data source, which is the business document that I've provided, has no information about this, right? So ideally it should not know this, but it will give an answer because I have gone and told it that as a fallback option, you can ask the LLM. Okay. So it said based on my knowledge, this is the part that it's getting from LLM. No answer part is the part that it's not getting it from any reliable enterprise data. But now if I go and turn this off over here, so you can see I have unchecked it. Okay, and if I save it, next time it will not really have an answer to that, right? So if I go back here and if I refresh this, okay, so let me ask the question again. Oh, looks like it's not synced it yet. But yeah, so ideally it should not be answering that. Let me see after some time. But once I've turned this off, it should not be getting it from the LLM. Okay, but I'll just show you. We'll try it again after some time. There are few other things also that you can do, okay, apart from whether you wanted to fall back to the LLM knowledge. Apart from that, there are things like blocked words. So if you don't want your teams to go and ask the recipe of a cake, right? This is a app for regarding your HR policies, your leave policies, etc. And you don't want them to just ask random questions, right? Like what is the top news today? What's the recipe for a cake? You can put in some blocked words. So for example, over here, I've put in these 4 words as blocked words. And let us see what happens when I ask a question which has these blocked words. That is one scenario. I can also go and have some topics which I can ensure that people do not get answers to those topics, I'll be blocking those topics also. So you can see them here, topic specific control. Okay, so you can add a topic over here. You can give examples of what kind of questions people might ask. Okay, you can put in an example chat message over here. So for example, me just give it, I already have one. Let me see if I can show that to you. Does it show up here? Yeah, let me show this, which I had already added. So basically, I don't want anybody to be asking questions related to food safety concerns. So this is a food business which is something to do with a food truck. People might have concerns about the hygiene level and compliances and all. So in case somebody asks questions something similar to this, then you should block them. So this is what we are doing. We are giving examples, so we can go ahead and edit it and add more examples also, so that it becomes smarter and understands what kind of topics to block. And if it detects a particular topic, then what should it do? So we have the option to say that block it completely. Okay, so that is also configurable. So you can see over here, there are options over here. In case it detects something similar to this, then we can block it completely, or you can answer using enterprise data. So you can give that option. So I have blocked it completely. Okay, so let me just show you an example. If I ask some question which has those blocked words, or it has the topic that we've blocked, what will happen? Okay, so let me just ask those questions and show you. Just give me a moment. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to say recommend me a food joint. And if you remember, I had blocked the word joint. So let me go back here. Not sure why it had not refreshed the last time. Or let me start a new conversation. Might be better. Yeah. Okay. So I'm saying recommend a food joint in my neighborhood. So you can see it got blocked because it has the word joint over here. Let me try and ask something related to that topic which we had blocked also. So let me find a question for it. Okay, so I'm going to put this question over here, which is related to food safety concerns. And ideally it should block it. So you can see it realized that this is related to the topic that we don't want it to answer, so it has blocked that too. So there are a couple of guardrails that we can put in there that can control the answers, right? Apart from this, if we have time, Ashish, how much time do we have? Then I can show a little bit about the web crawler data source as well. Do we have time?
Can would it be finishable in 5 minutes? Because I want to keep some time where the questions in chat. So I want Marco and you to answer those questions if you can. So if you can
Sure.
finish this in 5 minutes, then probably we'll have some 7 or 8 minutes for question answer.
Will do. Okay. So I'll just show you that I had actually created another data source. So as I told you, you can have multiple data sources. So you don't need to have only S3, you can have multiple. So the other data source that I had created was that of a web crawler. Okay. So it's showing one as added because I've already added it. So all you need to do is click over here, add, provide your name details, put in your URLs. Okay, so you can put in your URLs, more than one URLs also. You can have a file uploaded which has the URLs, or point it to your site maps. It's all possible over here. You need to provide your authentication details of those URLs, because some of them may not have authentication, some of them might have authentication like username, password, etc., which you can store in secrets manager, and you can put the details here as well, right? If it is an internal website, then you will have to put in a proxy detail also over here. Okay, and apart from that, some permission information, etc. And other things remain practically the same, just like S3. How do you want to sync it? So in this case, these are URLs. Do you want to sync only the domain, or domain and subdomain, or everything within those pages as well? Because it might be pointing to multiple other pages, other links also. So you can configure how frequently you want to do it. You want to do a full sync, or partial sync. So same things are over here. I'll just show you the ready-made one that I have, so you just get an idea. So this is a web crawler one that I created. And if you see the settings out here, does it show the URL? So I just wanted to show you the URLs. 1 minute. Maybe it will show it in the edit mode. Okay, so I've added two URLs. Okay, so one is a Wikipedia all about food truck, and other is a Wikipedia all about Ohio State. Okay, so now, so basically, right now, my application has two data sources. So, for example, just to quickly finish this demo, if now say if I ask something related to Ohio, okay, so what do you think? Will it answer or no? There are two data sources. There is a S3 data source, and there are those web crawlers also. One is the food truck wiki and the other is the Ohio wiki. Do you think it will be able to answer it? What do you think? Are we seeing any answers in the chat, Ashish?
Yeah, it
Okay,
says
let's
TCP
try.
RDG says yes, it will answer.
Okay. So I'll just say, tell me something about Ohio. Okay. So ideally,
Nice
it should
place.
answer me because there are two data sources now. One is the S3 one, which has the business plan, and the other are those web crawlers that I've configured. So you can see it is answering, and you'll see the sources will point to the Wikipedia that I had provided, right? So you can see, and in fact, you can see subdomains are different also, and I had specified in my case that it should be able to crawl. So this is just a little demo to show you that you can integrate different data sources, S3, web crawlers, or your external sources. All right, Ashish,
That's
I
a
think
great. Yeah.
we can take few questions now.
I mean, that's great demo. And the point I want to highlight here, Parna, and everyone is like, see, this is all done in UI. And once your admin has done this setup for you, any user can go to web interface and start asking questions. They do not need to have configuration done or update something or have another portal. And this whole thing can be integrated in your existing applications too, because it is API
Correct.
driven thing. So they do not need to have a different application now for chat and all. They can use the same application, and within that they would be able to have lots and lots of stuff happening through all the security and guardrail. And if you see the source which we are mentioning, this ensures that we are able to say that what is the source of this data. We are not hallucinating here. We are having a proper source from which my data is coming in. So that adds a lot of credibility to answer I am getting. And if I want to go further, I could go into that source and should be able to get a lot more detail here. I will also add Marco here in answering some question, and I want to take one more question's answer here. There was a question about what is the difference between IAM and IAM Identity Center. So to simply put, IAM gives you access to resources within that AWS account. So let's say my account number is 123. IAM is able to give me access only to 123 account resources, Lambda, EC2, and all. But when I'm using IAM Identity Center, that widens my scope. So now I may have AWS organization in which I have 50 AWS account, and I have enterprise application like Salesforce, Jira, WebEx, Microsoft Office. I would be able to access all of them from one single portal. So Identity Center allows you to connect to multiple identity sources like Active Directory, Okta, or OAuth, and then it gives you access to multiple resources also. So that is a benefit we get because of it, right? And I want to take a question for you, Marco. Like, can Ace when Parna showed the demo, we use the ACL which we provided in a format which was very specific JSON. Do we always need to have JSON for all the sources also?
Yeah, so for the ACLs themselves, you have the option to write that JSON in the console. So you've got the
Mm-hmm.
console that's got that JSON structure. You have to follow the structure for your data sources. It's documented what data sources, what structures you need to use. But the beauty of that ACL management system is that it's all API managed. So essentially, you can actually control ACLs through APIs. And if you want to build an enterprise assistant and you want to have an interface where you control, let's say you want to have your own platform where you control those permissions, you can just do it via API calls. And this is where the real power is. Nobody really wants to write JSON. What we want to do is we want to write an application that administrators could then use, a potentially a GUI built by the developers inside of the enterprise so that they can easily manage those users. Uh, But yeah, the structure is how all of our permission structures
Yeah.
are, right? It's all
This
a
one
common
is,
language.
I would say that this one is a S3 specific thing,
Yeah,
and that's why the format looks like this. But let's say you are using Salesforce or you are using another type of data sources. So that format would vary. How much
Yeah.
exactly would be, that will depend on the data sets we are utilizing here. So if you see here on the left side, all are the data sources which you can connect to. You do not need to convert your data from one format to another format. Let it be into the same format. It is in Drupal, it is in GitHub, it is in Microsoft Office, it is in Exchange. We could go ahead and get all the data and only display what you have permission to see, nothing beyond it. And it makes it very easy. You do not need to set up RAG, you do not need to set up a embedding engine. That will be all done by Q itself, and you could automate it. Like let's say your Drupal website gets updated every week, so you could trigger a Lambda who could go ahead and perform synchronization on your queue indexes. So it will always give you the automated information. And as you saw, Parna showed you that you are talking to a website. Now, if that website also has a data which gets updated, you could put a trigger on that, and based on that trigger, you could again automate your all the updates if the need be. Shouldn't be a problem at all. Great.
Right. So you don't always need ACL. If I would not have an ACL setup, so the
Hmm.
part where when I was creating the data source, if you remember, it's not a compulsion. Okay. So if I come back here, if when I go to try and edit it, I can go and remove the ACL as well. So if I remove that, so over here, if I just get rid of it and then I save it, then it will not do those access controls. So basically, all those users, irrespective of those groups, they'll be able to access the data. But that's not really what we want. So,
Makes sense.
yeah, so you don't really need, and the configuration of those ACLs will depend, right? So I was showing you
Yeah,
for S3, but for each of them, there is their own ACL
different
configuration.
configuration.
Yeah.
And there is one more question which is coming from SGV work. Q allows LLM selection. Is it predefined? Do we have option to select LLM behind the scene?
No. So
Yeah.
these
there's
are
no control.
pre-trained LLMs. You cannot
Yes.
select those.
So yeah, these are pre-trained, and this is behind the scene. Q is using Bedrock framework or Bedrock service. So we are probably leveraging some of those engines which are available or some of the models within it. But yeah, these are
Hmm.
highly customized and trained. And see, we do not want a user to get confused. You are an end user.
Correct.
You want to ask a question. You don't want to worry about whether it is model X responding or Y. We figure out what is the best model for this particular type of task, and based on that we deliver the result which you are looking for. So that makes the life easier rather than having people get confused on that. So that is
Yeah,
what we do at the
and
end.
I'm guessing this is for more for useful for business analysts who don't
Business
really
users.
they will not go and develop application using Bedrock, right? So if you need a lot of customization, you're going to use Bedrock to do that. But if these are business users who don't really care, you can think of it a very non-technical person could have done what I just did, right? It's
Exactly.
very simple. And
and
just to
and
show
as
you
a
one thing,
last minute
yeah,
thing, I want to
yeah,
tell that check one more feature. If somebody is trying this particular features into their demos or trying to understand it, if Parna, if you can just click on Amazon Q apps, there is a
yeah,
menu here on the enhancement. So this is
hmm,
also nearly wise feature, right? So what it allows you to do, it allows you to create an app by just giving a prompt. So you go
hmm,
to this particular Amazon Q apps and say, hey, I want an app which can generate summary for the document I submit and generate keyword for it and do the XYZ thing along with that. You give a
hmm,
prompt and then it will create application just from the prompt. So it makes life so easier
yeah,
for any business user. They can go and set up things. So when you try Q in your own account, make sure you check Q apps also. That would give you a
yeah,
great way to get started and then deliver your application to end user without writing a single line of code. Just be aware about the cost associated. Q is charged on a per user basis. There is a free time for demo available, means like 30 or 60 days. I don't remember exactly, but I believe it is 60 days, which is a trial period for Q. So if you're within that, and we are using free resources, so you should not get charged. But afterward, there would be a monthly subscription. So just be aware about that particular thing. But hopefully,
okay.
everyone has got a good understanding of what Amazon Q is.
Yeah, and just to add on to what Ashish said, it is like so interesting that you can have a conversation and you can literally convert that conversation also into another app, right? So you
Yeah,
can see that I had plenty of conversations and I can convert that also into an app.
yeah, just one
So
button.
that's a, yeah,
That's
yeah.
great. That's great. And any other thoughts, Marco, you want to talk about in what you any final things?
Yeah, the idea here is we've shown you this is nothing more than just retrieval augmented generation. It's nothing more than a model, an index. So all of this stuff you can build on your own. All of this can be built on your own if you have the technical acumen, if your enterprise has the technical skills to build a custom solution. But a lot of enterprises don't. A lot of enterprises need a solution right now. They want to just
Right.
upload data and start answering questions. And this is where Q business adoption is so much more accelerated. You can literally start using it in minutes. You saw Parna built it from scratch right now. If you already have a data source, if you already have your data lake or your SharePoint portals or your Jira tickets, you can connect them within minutes and start working with this solution. That's the beauty of Amazon Q, in my opinion. How fast you can get started with it, whether it would have tunable or trainable models or a selection of models in the backend is essentially irrelevant because it's not the group that this product is designed for. This product is designed for business users. Maybe they've already used some visualization. Maybe they even know something about their data sources. Maybe they know some SQL, but not much beyond that. And we give them the power of using this tool right away. Just like how you really don't know much about how those models that you use for your coding assistants and for your chat, for your explainability, right? You go to the website and you use it. And that is essentially what Q business is in the sense of an enterprise. Drives adoption.
Exactly. Yeah, one thing which I want to highlight, and thanks for doing it, Pawan. Like once you are about to reach 60 days, please delete your resources, including Q application, if you are not trying to use it commercially. Otherwise, you will get charged. Obviously, if you're using for
Yeah.
commercial reason, it's good to pay the money and then get the best benefit out of it. So thank you so much, Parna and Marco. Go ahead, sir.
Also, remember there's an index in the backend. OpenSearch serverless is the default engine, and that will also consume some cost every month. So if you're
Right.
not using it more than for your demo or for your testing, go ahead and delete it right away and then rebuild it next time. Otherwise, you'll get charges for OpenSearch serverless as well.
Great, good
Right.
advice.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you can see that it's using it, right? You
Yep.
can see it here.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. That's the index happening. Thank you, everyone. And some question which did not get answered, I'll pick them into my 1 minute question answer series. So check that too. And I hope you were able to get a lot of things on Amazon Q. We would have now the behavioral track where we have Rohan and I'll continue. But thanks, Marco and Parna. Anyone else, another questions which comes up for behavioral track or technical track, put them into chat and we will be happy to take them forward. Thank you. And we'll now start with the behavioral track and let me add Rohan to screen. Thank you. Let me remove others and let me add Rohan here. Hello,
Hey, hi.
Rohan.
Good to see you. And hello,
Good to
everyone.
see you. Means it's good to see you. And we've been communicating over email, but we never talked one to one. And it's so good that we are now talking in platform like Pesa. And thank you so much for being early in your time zone and helping us with this all the question which people have about the loop interview.
No, it's a pleasure. It's a topic that I'm like very passionate about. I'm happy to, be part of this.
Ron, we will start the session and have question answer. Can you please briefly introduce yourself, what you do in Amazon, how long you've been, and what is your day-to-day work looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I lead a team of partner solution architects here at AWS. We help partners build solutions, competencies, and capabilities on top of AWS. I've been with AWS for 10 years now. I'm coming up 10 years in 15 days. So looking forward to that as well. I started as a solution architect when I joined AWS. So, I've kind of lived this role for many years and now leading this team pretty close to the solution architects that work with both customers and partners.
Makes sense. And yeah, means your badge badge color is going to change. What is it? It will be red now.
It will become red now in few
That's
weeks.
good. So yeah, people who do not know, like people, when we somebody joins in Amazon, we get a blue badge which stays up to 5 years. After 5 years, the badge changes to orange, and after 10 years, it becomes a red. So it is like a proud you are wearing in the terms of badge to being in the company for so long. Thank you so much. And we will quickly jump into question in interest of time. And audience, please keep your questions coming, and we will try to address as much as we can. Now, Rohan, one very basic question that Why we call it a loop interview? What is the loop here?
So I think it's pretty interesting, right? Different companies have different hiring practices. So in Amazon, it's called a loop interview. It's typically 4 to 6 interviews. It used to happen on site over a day, right? Back to back interviews. But since COVID, we've started doing it virtually, and now we're coming back to doing these interviews on site, right? So it's those interviews back to back with different folks, different interviewers, part like the your hiring manager is there, the bar raiser is there, and few other like peers would also be there. And then post that there'll be a debrief, and then we kind of close the loop by giving the feedback to the candidate, right? So that's just a terminology we use internally, and that's why it's called a loop.
So yeah, means that's the next question. That okay, I talk to different people, and I'm hoping in that I would be talking to direct business owners or direct people who I would be working with, and somebody else also on the team. What
Exactly.
happens after loop interview? I did 5 hours of interviewing. What happens afterwards? What is debrief?
Yeah, so that's a very good question, right? So every interviewer, who talks to the candidate ends up, putting a bunch of interview summaries and notes in a system. It's an internal system where they add all the observation, insights, things that they kind of took away from the interview, and then add a vote, right? Whether they're inclined to hire the candidate or they're not inclined. And once everyone submits the vote, then we get into a process called debrief. It's where all the interviews come together on a call, and they read each other's interview summaries and notes to understand, and the votes as well, to understand holistically how the interview process is. And as an interviewer, you get data points and inputs just by your 1 hour of conversation. But now, after having 4 to 6 hours of conversation, you get like much more data points. So you absorb all that, and then there is a discussion that follows, right? Whether the candidate should be hired or not, right? And the bar raiser runs the loop, and runs the debrief. And the outcome of that debrief, after the discussion, there's another final vote that happens, and then the hire no hire decision is made. So that's typically how the debrief process runs. And there's one thing I want to also call out here, right? The way kind of we do interviews is not just to understand if the candidate can do the job that they are being interviewing for. Obviously that's critical, but that's not the only thing, right? We also look at whether the candidate fits into the Amazonian culture, and the leadership principles are important as well. And then also we are making a decision for a long term hire, right? So we're not kind of thinking about hiring somebody just for like that team or that role, but we hire for Amazon. So some of these aspects also play an important part in the hiring process, and it's not just the functional skill set or the technical skill set in case of a solution architect or a technical role that's only considered during the hiring process.
Yeah, and should I say that the loop interview only focuses on behavioral stuff, or there is a technical stuff too?
It's a mix of both, right?
Mix
So
of both.
every interviewer who comes to interview has got certain competencies that they evaluate. The competencies is a combination of some leadership principles as well as some technical competencies, right? Like if you're an architect, we look for technical breadth and depth. We look for experience of like being a trusted advisor for customers, right? We look at previous hands-on experience. That's super critical. So there are different aspects that we look at from a technical standpoint as well.
Hmm. Makes sense. That's nicely summarized. And then when it focused purely on the leadership skills, so what could be the best way a candidate can showcase that, hey, I'm living with these leadership skills, or I have embodied these skills?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. See, typically the behavioral questions are based on your past experiences, right? So the interviewer is going to ask you about like fairly open-ended questions, right? Like, hey, tell me about a time when you, got some critical feedback from a customer about a product, and what did you do about it, right? Like, so there'll be very generic open-ended questions. And the idea from an interviewer standpoint is to understand how did you kind of react and address, and how did you acted on some of these situations that happened in your past career. And what they will try to take away from it is how those kind of exhibited the leadership principles that we are looking for, right? So they are not something that you prepare for like an exam or anything, right? It just you need to come to the interviewer prepared to share some of the past projects and past like situational examples and behavioral examples, where you can highlight a lot of leadership principles, right? Like that's how the interview process typically happens.
Makes sense, makes sense. And most of the time we answer things in story format, right? So
Right.
question comes that should I have like 12 leadership principle into two stories for each, like 24 stories, or can I reuse my stories and frame them in a manner which
Yeah.
aligns to that specific principle which is being asked?
Yeah, I mean, see, my advice to candidates who are, interviewing or preparing for an interview is like, sometimes it's not very useful to be over prepared, right? So my advice always is, hey, write down a few strong examples, right, of projects that you have done, of some kind of really critical situations that you have faced, and how you have kind of addressed those situations. And don't think from, oh, I have to write an example for a leadership principle, or prepare for a leadership principle. I would rather kind of change the thinking there and say, hey, just write down examples of like what you have like done and based on your experience. And then when the question comes, you'll realize, hey, this example that I've prepared for
Hmm.
is the right example, and then just share that. That way you're much more authentic in your
Exactly.
responses, and you don't come across like over prepared, right? And now coming to the question, Ashish, you asked is reusing stories. I mean, see, there's no hard and fast rule. You can reuse stories, but don't use the same story for every interview. You also want to showcase the breadth of your experience,
Exactly.
right? So in order to showcase the breadth, you might want to give different examples to different interviewers, because like I said, in the debrief, everybody's going to read
Yeah.
everybody else's interview. So if it's the same story across like 5 or 6 interviews, then you're not representing yourself well by showcasing that, hey, you have a broad set of experience and not just a single project, right? So I would, if it makes sense, reuse it, use your judgment, but don't like reuse it, don't overdo it, right?
I agree on that. And maybe I'm taking a question from AK which goes back to debrief. What happens if one says no and one says yes to hire? Inclined, not inclined. Is there a
Yes.
debate happening, or who gets their veto power? Bar raiser?
So, see, everybody comes in very open-minded, right? For the debrief, and obviously there is a training that happens before even you can interview, right? So, all Amazonians who are doing interviews have undergone certain trainings on how the hiring process works and so on. So, when you come in the debrief, more often than not, it is the votes are not always everybody's inclined or everybody's not inclined, right? It is always a combination of some folks are
Mhm.
inclined, some folks are not inclined, and that's a good thing. That's where the candidate has really represented themselves well, and this is where the debrief then kind of starts kind of peeling the onion, so to say, to understand, hey, why is somebody saying no, right? What were their reasons, right? Are those coachable reasons, or are those like something which are so ingrained that it's difficult to change it, right? Or is it something you can address with training? Is it something that you'll get with experience? So it's a very open-minded discussion about how you address that. And from a bar raiser standpoint, they are the ones who are running this debrief, so they look into things as, hey, whether some of this are really a big blocker for hiring, or some of these are just like something that you can coach and kind of learn. The end result of the debrief, right, if it's inclined,
Mhm.
is still that the hiring manager gets some input saying, hey, these are some of the things you want to do when the candidate onboards, on how to coach them and help them become successful, right? So it's like typically you have like performance reviews in your companies, and you get that feedback of, hey, these are things you did well, these are the things you need to growth ideas and things you need to grow on. Those kind of inputs are given to the hiring manager, right? So that's how the DB process works. It's a pretty cohesive and process where everyone has a voice and a weight. So I wouldn't say there is one person who can really swing the decision, right? Obviously, being the bar raiser, they have a kind of a veto power, like you said, Ashish. But like, see, I've been a bar raiser for 4 years. I've never used a veto power, right? Because
Exactly.
everybody is open to feedback and open to changing their views, right? And this is exactly how the process should work.
Makes sense. And like probably this is a question which people may have in mind. Sunil is asking if in loop interview a candidate is not able to perform well in starting 2 3 interviews, then also he will be allowed to appear in the remaining interviews.
Oh yeah, absolutely, right. Because
Yeah.
these interviews are very independent, right? So again, the idea behind doing these interviews is that we want to have different people diverse opinions,
Hmm.
about the candidate. So we try to remove the bias out of this, right? So there could be one interview with the candidate did not do well, and we see that a lot, right? Like when you entering a loop, the first interview you're a little nervous as a candidate, and sometimes you're not
Yes.
kind of really, you don't typically end up doing well in the first, right? Like at least personally I've like had that experience when I was interviewing. But then when you get to the second, you're like a little used to it, you start doing better. By the time you get to the third, you're like really giving strong examples, right? So like each like treat each interview as a fresh interview, as they
Hmm.
say in sports, right? Like forget the past moment, like look at the next moment, like think of the interviews like that. Like start fresh, do your best, and then when the debrief happens, all these factors would get considered, right? And then I've seen many debriefs where somebody says, hey, I was the first interview, so I didn't like really get a lot of good inputs, but seeing
Hmm.
everybody else's feedback, I'm ready to change my work, right? I was not inclined beginning, but I'm now inclined, because I think because mine was the first interview, the candidate was a little nervous, right? So these factors, also human factors, also play a pretty
Exactly.
important role in the debrief.
Yeah. And it's a very easy to when it's very common to get nervous in interview. However well
Yes,
you prepared are, interview is
yes,
an interview. And when the
exactly.
stakes are high, like joining AWS or not, and probably you would have butterflies in your stomach. It's completely normal to have. So yeah, that's why the biases are removed by multiple interview rounds and all. But that's a good one. And so Rohan, what is the time frame we respond back to candidate after the loop interview? Is it 5 days?
Yeah, typically it's 5 days. In I think more than 90-95% of the interviews we get back to the candidate in 5-6 days. There are sometimes cases where somebody's going on PTO, so you can't do the debrief within 5 days, or there's some critical customer engagement. So there are a few cases where it gets delayed, but I think for most part, our recruitment team and talent team is pretty good at scheduling the debrief within like 2 to 5 days after the
Makes
interviews have been conducted.
makes sense. Okay, great. And then there's a question like, can a candidate be offered a higher or lower position based on the interview performance?
Oh,
Does it
absolutely.
happen?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it happens more often than you think,
Oh.
like, and it's not just always about, like you said, like getting a lower position. It's also, I've been in many interviews where you're interviewing for one level that the candidate did really well. So he said, hey, if you bring this candidate at this level, probably you're doing a disservice to the candidate and Amazon as well. You should rather hire the candidate at a higher level, right? And the other scenario is also kind of that. So again, just because you're starting at a level for an interview doesn't mean you'll end up at that same level.
That's a good one. Yeah, means it's a fair thing, right? Isn't it, for candidates too and for Amazon too? So that makes sense, completely makes sense. Now I want to take one question on star format, which is like well known thing about Amazon we use. So how we can effectively use star method, and if you can give an example of like, hey, if there's a question like this, what I could have done to give a format and answer in a star format.
Yeah. Uh, so firstly, I'll say, see, using the star format is really important, right? For somebody uh, on in the interview, right? And the reason being, see, you might be very close to the project or very close to the experience that you had, but when you're talking about that experience to somebody who's never heard it, might not even, associate with some of those things, it's important to break that down, in a star format for somebody to understand, and then kind of get the right takeaways from it, right? So stars really important. For people who don't know what star is, star stands for situational, task, actions, and results. And I'll give you an example. So let's say if you get asked a question, hey, tell me when you had an operational issue or operational event and there was an outage for a customer, how did you help that customer, right? So if that's a question that you get asked, then you should start with the situation, right? In this case, the situation could be, yeah, I was working with the e-commerce customer who had a outage for the e-commerce side during a peak sale event, right? And the customer sentiments were bad, and like users were getting errors, and as a result there was revenue loss, right? And the customer thought, hey, it is a server capacity issue, so they thought they would add more servers to mitigate the capacity, but it was going to increase the infrastructure cost if they do. So this is the situation, and then you need to kind of talk about the task you had in hand, right? So as task as an architect, for this customer, my job was to make sure that I find the right architecture solutions to this problem, and also prevent this problem from occurring in the future, right? And then the actions you take, right, is very important, and this is where you have to really kind of showcase the work that you do and get to a level of details, in my opinion. So you can talk about, hey, so when I first got this feedback, I went and tried to analyze the bottlenecks. So for that, I analyzed the cloud trail logs. I looked at the x-ray x-ray configurations and the logs. I looked at the load balancing configuration. I looked at the auto scaling configurations. I looked at the database query performance, right? So these are the things I kind of looked at, and then I realized that there were two key bottlenecks, right? One was there was a subsystem which was a monolith, and it required high time to scale up and down, and the database queries were, a few of those database queries were not really performant, and they were taking a lot of time. That was creating a load, and that's what the connections were dropping, right? So then I came up with a short term solution and long term solution. The short term solution was to change the scaling parameters, or create read replicas for databases to triage some of the queries to reduce the connection errors. But the long-term solution was, for me, I recommended the customers to break down that subsystem and make it serverless.
Hmm.
And also on the database side, redesign some of the queries to improve the performance. So in the first month, we implemented the short-term fixes to provide customer with high availability in the you know um, in the short term. But over the next 3 months, we re-architected the system. I worked with the DevOps team to test it and do the necessary load testing, and then eventually it was pushed to production. So these are all the actions you took, and then the result, again, try to quantify result with data. Like in this case, you can say, hey, after that we realized that the performance, even with 5x the load, was the same, right? Or database query performance reduced by almost 60%, right? So these are some of the results. And then it's been like 2 years since we, had that fix in production, and we didn't have an outage because of that, those particular issues, right? So these are the results you share. So this, as I share this example, you'll see it's simple for anybody who's not been in that situation, not being a solution architect also
Not being
able to understand. And that's why the star format is, so hope Ashish that helps. you know
that's great example. I mean, that's a very common example, and the way you broke it down, it really will help a lot of people in passing these interviews. I'm sure on that. Now, there we can prepare well, Rohan, for everything, and but there would be still question in interview which I have no clue about
yes.
how I should be going about it. So if I have a candidate is handling a question which is unfamiliar topic or technology, what he or she should be doing.
Yeah, and that happens more often than not in technical interviews, right? You will not come across every technology or every scenario, right? So firstly, I would say, be honest and authentic, right? Many times, if you don't know something, just say you don't know. That's okay. Okay, you're not expected to know everything. So
Yeah.
somebody asked me a question about, hey, tell me about how does like encryption work in a certain service or a certain storage technology, and I've never kind of done that. I'll say, hey, I don't know that, but here's how I would, if I get that question from a customer, here's how I would proceed, right? I'll go look at the AWS documentation. I'll quickly use my internal AWS account to kind of do a POC and a pilot, then talk to a couple of experts. And this is how I will respond, right? So again, what you're showing here is two things. One is you're being honest that you don't know something, and then you're
Mhm.
showing the ability to find the answer.
Find the answer.
That is more important as an essay, right? It's not about you knowing anything, but yeah, what do you do to find the answer or to gain the right expertise to be able to address that situation, right? And if that you're able to showcase, then that's a big plus, for you as a candidate, because now you're showing the right behavior, right? So that's how I would recommend kind of addressing anything that you don't know or you're not familiar with.
Makes sense. And what you have seen in your tenure, that what are the common mistakes candidate make? Could be intentionally, unintentionally. Intentionally, obviously, no one would do it, but it
Yes.
happens like I'm nervous or I'm not feeling well or whatever. So what could be the
Yeah.
common mistakes which you have seen?
So I would give like few recommendations, right? More best practice
Hmm.
and what to avoid. Firstly, be prepared, right? You might be a very well experienced solution architect, but still kind of treat the interview, be prepared. uh, like I recommend people to write down some strong examples from their experience and projects, so that just when the question comes, you are able to articulate in a crisp manner. Secondly, those examples need to have the right data, and many times you forget, right, like what you've done 3 years back. So it's good to write them down, and being prepared is probably the most important step, right? Is The other thing is, don't be over prepared. Okay. And what I mean by over prepared is, see, you need to also read through the Amazon leadership principles, because that's a critical competency area for your interviews, and your examples need to bring that out, right? But I've also seen candidates who try to do kind of leadership principle name dropping. I think I was customer obsessed here, right? And that kind of comes across a little bit unauthentic sometimes. So
Agree.
don't be over prepared, and don't say the words because you think those words would mean something, but rather be very authentic in your example. So that's one kind of general thing. uh, like I said, be honest. If you don't know something, say you don't know something, but like also share, hey, this is how I would find the answer, or give an example. Hey, in the past, like I got this question, I didn't know about it, and this is how I found it. So that's another way of like preparing. The other thing also, which I've seen is not using star formats. You're a little bit all over the place, and it's hard for
Hmm.
somebody to understand like your thinking or how you've kind of addressed that situation. So try to practice the star format before you go to interviews. That's the another kind of best practice I would kind of share with the people. So if you're prepared to do this, if you do all these, then I think you'll have a good kind of interview.
Makes sense. And maybe this is a question which is like Should I be asking about the option or like how did I perform? Will there would be an answer given to me in the interview? Like somebody would tell me I did well or no? I think no, right?
No, you won't get a lot of details, right? Because obviously some of it is considered like confidential information, but you'll get some high level like feedback, right? And again, there are many factors that can kind of result in a not inclined outcome, but typically you don't get a lot of details.
Makes sense. And now I'm picking up a question which is very, very specific to the org you led. That what is the difference between a solution architect and a partner solution architect?
Yeah, I mean, see, there are different solution architect roles in AWS, right? So the three roles, I can talk about is there are solution architects who manage customer accounts. Then there are
Hmm.
solution architects who are specialized in certain technology or industry. And then third solution architect is solution architects who manage partner accounts, right? So I work with, partners like Salesforce or Databricks or ServiceNow or Accenture or TCS, right? These are all AWS partners, part of the AWS partner network. So I work with those partner accounts. And the role is no different. It's managing an external kind of account, whether it's a partner or a customer or a technology area if you're a specialist, or a industry if you're an industry SA. So those are different type of solution architect roles that you'll see in AWS.
Makes sense. And it was really insightful discussion, Rohan, and thanks for being here on Saturday. I know it's a very busy schedule for you and being odd
Not at
time,
all.
but yeah,
It's my
thank
pleasure.
you so much. Means it was so nice to talk to you all and very authentic and very, very um, unique understanding of the role and how things. So people would be obviously be getting benefited from it. With that note, we hope to speak you in some other sessions, Ron, and thank you so much. For the
Definitely.
participant who are just joining us or listening it afterward, feel free to share more questions. We would have expert who would be able to answer question, and any feedback you have for the session you have seen about Q and this loop interviews and all, let us know so that we can improve the content and give you the best from the time you are investing here. Thank you so much. As a last step, Marco has sharing a slide, so I'll add that. So complete the workshop link, we'll share it into email. Share your learning in the LinkedIn group, and then help others in Discord channel so that they can also prepare for the workshops or interviews, and you could spread the word about BESA program. And do not forget to provide feedback or ask question into the comment. Thank you, Rohan, and we will hope to see you in some other session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ashish.
Thanks, everyone.